So the fallout continues with the whole Daily Wire Crowder controversy. And I just wanted to I'm going to just make this other quick video. This one's hopefully not going to be as long as the other one. I'm glad to see that people are starting to come to terms with just how horrible Crowder has been behaving in this situation. Like, it really is mostly on him, if not all on him. And there are a lot of people who are still, they desperately want to say that, like, both sides come out looking bad here. I heard that a lot from the guys on FNT tonight, but it's really not that. I'm sorry. I wish it was, okay? I wish it was that simple. You know, that would be easier, because then I can be like, you guys just need to stop fighting and leave me out of it. I don't want to have to take sides here. And as I said in the last video, I was very much against the Daily Wire after listening to Crowder's video. And then Daily Wire's video, I was in favor of the Daily Wire, but I was still like trying to give Crowder the benefit of the doubt. And then the video Crowder released after that is like, okay, no, this guy, he is shoving a knife in the back of his friends. These are his friends, and he's stabbing them in the back. There's no two ways about this. And I don't know what's worse, the fact that he took that video of the phone call, or the fact that he actually thought he had something. Because he had nothing with that. If you're going to release a recording of a phone call, it better be some damning evidence. That was nothing. You caught Jeremy using a euphemism. Oh no, what a nightmare. I hope that was worth betraying your friend and stabbing them in the back, because that seems like... You talk about this guy doesn't know anything about business. That was a terrible risk versus reward analysis right there. Okay, you're going to come out against Jeremy like that, or you're going to like seriously burn him like that? You could at least have something that was damning. I don't know what to say. Maybe he'll release more of the phone call that makes Jeremy look really bad, but as it is right now, if that's all he's got, that is some weak-ass tea. That is weak for you to stab your friend in the back over, right? But again, as I've said, so after I made the video, I was getting in arguments with people on Twitter, people who were friends of mine, people in comment sections, and you know what put an end to every single one of the arguments? When I would ask the question, why, if Crowder was so morally outraged by the structure of this deal that the Daily Wire had offered him, why did he come back with a counteroffer for a bigger price tag? And you know what? That stops every single conversation in its tracks, and they got nothing. They got nothing. The Crowder supporters got nothing when you ask him that question, because it very clearly shows that, yeah, no, Crowder has a price tag, and he was willing to sell out. He was perfectly willing to sell out. All this talk about how he doesn't care about money is bullshit. He was totally and I mentioned this in my last video, he was totally willing to sell out. But the fact that even his most staunch defenders that I have argued with, they can't answer for that. They're just like, oh yeah, that kind of pokes a massive hole in all of this this outrage, this moral outrage that he has about this. All this, oh, I care so much about the young talent. Really? Because you were willing to sell them right down the river as long as you got your big paycheck. But you didn't, did you? So now what are you doing? Trying to stick a knife in your friend's back. You're like, well, if, you know, he's doing the Anakin Skywalker. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. So, here we are. Stuff like that was very deeply annoying. And also, his thing about wanting to own the content after he leaves the Daily Wire, like the content that the Daily Wire paid to produce, he wanted to own that after he leaves. Like, if I went to work for a company and I used their infrastructure to make, like, widgets, kind of like, and this is how Brett Cooper described her situation. She's like, I'm using all their stuff to make my content. It's like, if he's using all of their Daily Wire stuff to make his content. Yes, they own that. Why wouldn't they own that? And him saying that's exploitative for people to own what they paid for. Like, imagine I commissioned an artist to make something. Or imagine, like I said, I know I trailed off a little bit. I made a widget at a company and then I demanded that company let me take the widget with me when I leave, even though I used all of their stuff to create it. It's like, that's insane. That is an insane and unreasonable request, and it's bullshit, okay? Crowder is grasping at straws just like with all of this. Jeremy made it abundantly clear with this. Again, Ben Shapiro had an excellent response when he was doing the play-by-play. You should go check out that video. I'll link it in the description. But Jeremy laid it out pretty clearly that this was a massive investment that they were going to have to put multiple projects on hold for. And the real answer to all of this is they just couldn't afford Crowder. And that's fine. You should have just shook hands and went separate ways. But no, Crowder wants to go out on his own. He's generated this horrible news controversy. It's so bad. And we've now gotten to the point where they're like, well, both sides really look bad. Like, I heard a lot of the guys on FNT saying that. Like, oh, well, both sides kind of look bad in this one. It's like, no, this is completely one-sided, okay? Crowder looks really bad, and the Daily Wire looks like the Daily Wire. I mean, they look like what they are. A conservative news outlet that is not that big and certainly can't afford a talent as big as Crowder. And they tried, but he wanted like 3 times the amount that they were offering him, and they're like, yeah, we don't have that kind of capital. And so negotiations fell through. Like, there's no other way to read that than he just cares about the money. I don't know how you read that some other way. But he did make a snarky comment that, you know, because a lot of people, myself included, have been saying, yeah, the Daily Wire is trying to run a business, not a charity case. And he made a snarky comment in his video that, you know, you're never doing the right thing or whatever, or when you have to say it's just business. You know, that should tell you that something's a little off there. You never hear that said when you're, like, doing charity or work or whatever. Like, you never say it's just business. You know where you could say that? When you're buying food for your kids, when you're buying a house, when you're buying all the things you need to live and live a normal life. All of those things, you don't get those vis-a-vis charity. You get those through business transactions. Okay? What a jackass thing to say. I know how much he loves, by the way, to pat himself on the back when it comes to charity. And this is one thing, like, politicians do this, and I think it's disgusting, and I think it's disgusting when he does it, too. Okay? He, will record videos of him. He did one, just last year, like, Crowder Gives Back, and he does these videos where he's, like, giving out these massive checks, giant checks, and he's got the camera turned on himself, and he's like, oh, look, everyone, look at what a good person I am. See how wonderful I am donating to charity? You know the guys at the Daily Wire donate to charity. You know how much they donate to charity? I don't know. But they do. You know what they don't do? They don't have a flicking... They don't have an hour-long video extravaganza patting themselves on the back at what good people they are. They donate to charity and then they shut up about it, which is, by the way, is how I donate to charity. I don't sit there and tell it, because it's not about me. You know who does turn the camera on themselves every time they donate to charity? Politicians do that. People who want everyone to think they're such a good, upstanding person. I watched... Which one did I watch? I think I watched the one where he gave a bunch of Nerf guns to the kid who was refused a Nerf gun. And I was like, this is really, like, self-flattering on Crowder's part. That's really how it came off. It was pretty despicable. I was like, yeah, this is, like, the kid's clearly not really interested in this, and he's a little uncomfortable and nervous. You could say that's because he was on TV. It just seemed very self-flattering on Crowder's part, so... Yeah, to me, it wasn't a good look. And after that, I'm like, I'm not watching any of his charity giveaways or anything like that, because it seems like he's just patting himself on the back and trying to show everyone, like, look, what a good person I am. I'm such a wonderful person. Look how much money I gave away. Again, it's like you're buying sympathy from people. How much charity does it cost to make you think I'm a good person, right? That's how it really feels when you do stuff like that. Not a fan. But I wouldn't have even mentioned that if it wasn't for him sitting there talking about how, oh yeah, it's incredibly immoral to do business with people. There is this weird like kind of subsection of the conservative movement that's become, I almost want to say, infected with communism. Like the idea that the Daily Wire's quote-unquote corporate is somehow a bad thing. Like, it's inherently evil. If anything, if corporations, businesses, any of that kind of talk, that's like inherently evil. And I was under the impression, at the very least, that the right side of the aisle was realistic about economics and understood the notion that corporations are neither inherently good nor inherently bad. That was the way I understood. That was the way I thought we were mostly, at least, and on the same page with stuff like that. But it seems not. We're very much not on the same page with stuff like that. In fact, a lot of people were giving the Daily Wire people crap, saying that, oh well, they're under contract, so everything they say. This is really convenient for Crowder, by the way. The Daily Wire people are under contract, so anything they say in defense of their friends and the company they work at, that's a lie, right? Because they're under contract, which I don't know how. One guy said to me, he's like, yeah, I think Brett Cooper is a good kid, but she's under contract, so we can't believe a word she's saying. Nobody, I'll tell you this right now, nobody who looks in the camera and is like, I promise I am telling you what I genuinely believe. If they turn around and when they're freed from whatever contract and they say, yeah, that was all BS, I had to say that for the money, you are not a good person. So this guy who told me that he thinks Brett Cooper is a good kid, he clearly does not, because he thinks she's being forced to lie right now. Not forced, but, you know, she's being paid to lie. And she's doing it. And trying to sound as genuine as possible. It's like, no. I think she just genuinely believes this. And I think you're making her look like a bad person by suggesting otherwise. Same thing with pretty much everyone who works for the Daily Wire. It's a great situation for Crowder because, yeah, he can make an unfalsifiable claim. Anyone who works for the Daily Wire that defends the Daily Wire is going to be like, oh, well, they're just paid shills. Okay, well, there's a lot of us out there, and it's an ever-growing amount. Thank goodness. An ever-growing amount of us are recognizing that what Crowder did was horrible. And the polls are showing it. The tide is turning, and it's going to take more time. Clearly, unfortunately. I understand. You know. People were... You don't want to believe it. You don't want to see two of your favorite media outlets fighting. But Crowder's got no one to blame for this but himself. And as I said, you can sit there and bitch about the deal all you want. And how, oh, you know, they should have offered him more money and all this other crap. They don't have the money. They're not that big of a company. They're a big company by conservative standards, but that's not saying much. So, those were just a few things that were really kind of irritating me. I see a lot of people trying to play this like both sides are at fault here. There's only one side at fault here, unfortunately. And as I said, you know, I've listened to Crowder for years, been a fan of his. Not anymore. Okay, this is not the kind of guy I ever want to listen to. I don't know what he can say. I'll be interested to see what he has to say for himself, but I don't know what he can say to make this right. Okay? Because regardless of whether or not you liked the deal, This guy abused the trust of a man who thought he was his friend to try to burn him, to try to bury him in the public eye, and steal customers from him. I mean, that's really what this was about. He's trying to wreck the Daily Wire's business, and he's trying to start his own business. Trying to step on them while climbing up. And then he's going to sit there and preach about, oh, this isn't about the money. By the way, go subscribe over at Mug Club. The whole while, and also saying that the Daily Wire doesn't like people like him. I don't know how you could say that when they've been so closely working together for so many years. Like, the Daily Wire is clearly in favor of what he's doing, and they've supported him in many cases. They've done live streams together. Are we just going to pretend that all of that didn't happen? That the Daily Wire wasn't encouraging him and promoting him all these years? Now suddenly he's a problem person? So because they've secretly been in bed with big tech this whole time? You guys are smarter than that. Okay? We're all smarter than this. This is 110% the fault of one man who's just fractured the conservative movement pretty intensely. And you got a lot of people like Shad and Jeremy from the Quartering and Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen's sitting there like, I knew this was going to happen the whole time. It's like, okay, Lauren. I saw this coming a mile away. Sure you did. I love it when people say stuff like that. Whenever something dramatic happens, like, I knew this was going to happen. I'm like, oh, did you now? Why don't you tell us all about it then? Since you're so wise and so smart. Like, your time to say that this was coming was a while ago. Okay? You got clips of that, maybe say that, I called it, or whatever. You know, phrase it like that. And here's the clip of me calling it. I called it way back whenever. But if the time's already passed, now you just kind of look like an asshole. Like, oh, I knew it the whole time. You're like those, what are they? The astrology people that, like, whatever your sign is, whenever you tell people what your sign is, they're like, I knew it. Like, I'm a Sagittarius. I knew it. You know, stuff like that. Yeah, you just come off like a jackass. When you say, unless you actually said it prior, then highlight that, and then you can be like, oh, yeah, I guess they did call it. Way to go. But if you're going to sit there and be like, oh, no, I saw this coming, I just didn't say anything to anyone about it. It's like, shut up. Don't do that. So, I don't know. I haven't followed Lauren's nonsense. But, again, she's trying to do the both sides thing. Jeremy, I don't know. Or Jeremy from the Quartering, I don't know if he's trying to do the both sides thing. He seemed like he was pretty strongly in favor of Crowder at first. And there, like I said, there's a lot of people who are fans of Crowder who, I don't know what to say. He took a dark turn here. Like, he really, and it's such a hard turn. Like, a lot of us just want it to stop. We want it to stop. I don't want any more of this. And I'm sympathetic to a lot of people who just want this to stop. But here's the thing. You know, if Mexico launches missiles into the U.S. and blows up a major city, and now we're at war with Mexico, and you have a bunch of people saying, we want this to stop. It's like, yeah, but they kind of forced us to do something. Like, you can't just let them get away with launching missiles into a major city, and then you retaliate, and they launch missiles into another major city. Okay? You can't just ignore that. Okay? And you can't just, like, I'm sure the guys at the Daily Wire would love nothing more than to, you know, go back to their normal friendship with Crowder, but that is very clearly not what he wants. You know, a lot of people recognize the importance and value of the Daily Wire and Crowder, and we also recognize that there's a lot of bigger fish to fry out there, and this does nothing but damage and fracture the movement. But who started it? Who came out and basically said it was the Daily Wire without saying it was the Daily Wire? Who's like this super corrupt right-wing big con, you know, all this crap. releasing recordings of your self-proclaimed friends, of the people you declared to be your friends. You're releasing private recordings of them that they did not know about. Again, like, I would love to see people try to work with Crowder after this. I would never work for that guy, and I don't think anyone should ever. Him sitting there saying, I've only recorded like 3 people in my life, you can piss off, dude. I would never do business with you. I hope people don't do business with him. Okay? Like, this is the thing. Long term, that recording was like one of the worst things Crowder did for himself. Okay? It makes it very hard for his supporters to defend him. And it makes it very hard for people who would have wanted to do business with him, because it's like, now, anytime you're talking to him, he might be recording you and he might use it as a weapon against you. You have to always keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking to Crowder now. So, and all these people trying to defend him by being like, well, you should always assume you're being recorded. It's like, fuck off, dude. This guy recorded his friend of 10 years. I would agree with you if it wasn't his friend of 10 years. Again, pardon my French. It's just, as I say, this isn't a two sides thing. This is a really greedy person. I've been shot. Fatality. Crowder found me and he shot me. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I guess my neighbor was shooting off fireworks. I might edit that out or leave it in. I don't know. But yes, I definitely want us to get all of this behind us. But if I can't have that, I at the very least want people to see the light and realize that this guy is a horrible person. And what he's done is, the recording your friend thing is really inexcusable. That was really when it got to just be like, okay, this is ridiculous. And yes, the timing of all this is super duper ultra convenient, that he would have this outrage with the Daily Wire just as he's launching his own campaign to raise money or whatever. Raise money and build employees and build his own little infrastructure. Right? He does all of this very conveniently at the same time, even though because he registered the domain for Stop Big Con. When was it? It was like last year. It was like way back in last year. Because he's been planning this for a while. Alright. Again, I've ranted enough. I tried to keep it short, but just, the more you think about it, the more you're like, I really want people to see the light on this one. And I know they're coming around. Just do it faster. Okay? Because I do not want to see, if people like this get away with bullshit like this, the conservative movement is done for. Okay? All that's going to be left is corruption and backstabbing and all this traitorous nonsense. Like, Crowder does not deserve to get away with this. Incredibly two-faced, incredibly underhanded. And all this stuff, I'm mad. I'm mad because I was a fan of his. That's the other thing. Like, me saying all this stuff, I'm very mad about this because I was a big fan of his. I thought I knew the guy. And again, I'm sorry, Crowder defenders, you're not going to be able to hang your hat on a non-binding conversation starter contract that had a lot of room for adjusting prices and all this other stuff. And him saying, again, if what Jeremy Boring said was true and Crowder really wanted to get paid regardless of whether or not he made money for the Daily Wire, well, that's BS. And if you have a problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. They can't just make this massive investment without seeing some ROI. Alright, I'll leave it there. I've ranted long enough. Again, I almost went 30 minutes again. I was trying to keep it brief, but, you get on a tear and you're just like, you're very saddened, so. Share the video, I guess, if you agree. Get the word out there. If you don't agree, I would give you a hug if I could. You'll come around, and I'm sorry that you're like trapped in the bubble. Give it a minute, you know. Deep breaths. We're all hurting here. Okay? So, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.